All right. Good morning, Fort Alliance.
Good morning.
Welcome here. I welcome those of you that may be joining us online. Especially just want to let you know, I know some of you are unable to be here just due to health or seasons of life. Know that we understand, that we weekly pray for you, and that we just pray God blesses you and protects you in this season. And for those of you that are just seeking and trying to figure out who Fort Alliance is and just maybe checking us out in this way, welcome. We're glad you're here, and we hope one day that we can meet, all right? We are talking about spring fever. In the midst of a conversation around spring fever, I have an initial question for you. My initial question is, have you ever gotten an unexpected gift? Like a really good one, like just totally unexpected. When I was thinking about unexpected gifts, I actually thought of my brother, my little brother. We often say that my little brother has a horseshoe up his, because he wins stuff all the time, all right? A number of years ago, he won a trip to Italy. Like, seriously, Italy. How amazing is that? Now, we're going to talk about relationships, specifically singleness today. At the time, he was dating somebody, so he wasn't single, if you will. So he was kind of in a relationship. But in the midst of this a season or this winnings of a trip to Italy, he decided not to take her. And instead, he picked someone else. No, it wasn't me. It was a drinking buddy from his college days. And the crazy part about this trip is he exchanged his trip to Italy for a flight to Kelowna. Here's the thing about gifts, right? We're given unexpected gifts, but it's up to us to do with them what we want, right? Once you get a gift, you get to do what you want. Italy, Kelowna, whatever. Today, as we press in, spring fever, we're going to discover a gift from Scripture that might to some feel a little unexpected, but we get to do with it what we want, to do with it what we choose. In Spring Fever, we've been talking about relationships. Week one, I talked about relationships. I talked about a marriage, and then we went through conflict resolution, useful for marriage, but useful for any relationship. Last week, we had a panel join us, had wisdom from over the years of marriage shared with us. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about singleness, in particular, the journey of singleness. And I have a few key passages that I want to start with. Okay, so the first one is found in Matthew chapter 19. Now, I actually read from Matthew chapter 19 in the very first week as I established that from the perspective of Jesus, when it comes to marriage, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Meaning that Jesus doesn't want anyone to get divorced. This is his ideal in marriage, is that no one would be divorced. And the disciples hear this, and they are brutally honest. And they basically say, well, if that's the case, being married is way too hard. Don't believe me? Let's take a look. Matthew 19, verse 10. Jesus' disciple then said to him, if this is the case, it's better not to marry. Not everyone can accept this statement, Jesus said. Only those whom God helps. Some are born as eunuchs, some have been made eunuchs by others, and some choose not to marry for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can. Interesting. Paul, actually in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, in the midst of talking about marriage and sexuality, kind of does a little bit of a deviation from the topic and brings up the very topic of being single. Here's what Paul says about being single in 1 Corinthians 7. But I wish everyone were single, just as I am. Yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. So I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it is better to stay unmarried, just as I am. Now, I don't know if you caught that, but Paul refers to singleness as a gift. Now, that might seem a little unexpected initially, but Paul refers to being single as a gift. Like any gift, there's an opportunity to decide what we will do with it. In light of that, I wanted to also read James 1:17. Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father. It is God who gives us good gifts. So I want to talk about the gift of singleness. And as I talk about the gift of singleness, I want to just kind of mention a couple things that I think are really important around this. So the first thing is this, is that God not only gives the gift of singleness and cares about our singles, God actually blesses them in the midst of being single. Just this past week, I was talking with someone from our church family who's a single, and they're a little older, and they had an accident. And as I was calling in to check in with them, they said to me, "You're not going to believe it, Pastor Ken. The amount of people that came and visited me in our church, I can't believe it. The amount of people that would come in and bring me a meal or check in, it was absolutely amazing. There was incredible blessing in the community of faith. God, in the midst of them being single, used the local church to bring blessing upon them." God blesses our singles. Now, the thing about gifts is gifts are a part of celebrations, aren't they? And so God also celebrates our singles. And likewise, I think it's important that we celebrate our singles. One example. One of my most precious relationships when I lived in Lloydminster was with an 80-year-old widow who every week would come and meet me in my office for a time of prayer. Week after week after week. And what was such a blessing to me is picture 29-year-old Ken, all right, pressing into this type of role. And there were some folks that were a little unsure about maybe my not-so-traditional vibe. I know, unbelievable, right, brother? But this lady was a stalwart in the church family. And she again and again, not just cheered me on, but affirmed that I press in to being an authentic, truthful communicator of the gospel and God's word. I had a letter she wrote me that I kept. I had it in Lloyd. I had it pasted in the front of my Bible because it was a reminder to always just be an authentic, truthful communicator of the gospel. She was an immense blessing to me. And I kid you not, 2 years ago when she passed away at 92 and they asked me to come do the funeral, it was one of the biggest honors of my life to be asked to speak on behalf of God and her at her funeral. Women like that, powerhouses, and God celebrates them. He celebrates that in the midst of their singleness, they use what they have to be a blessing. Speaking of being a blessing, as you heard from Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the gift of singleness is not for self. It's for service. The gift of singleness is not for self, it's for service. And God uses singles, and he definitely uses singles here. Paul's the best example. I mean, you could go throughout history, you could find all kinds of stories, but Paul's an incredible example. He knew he had a God-ordained call on his life. It was crystal clear. He was going to take the gospel to the Gentile nations. This was so, so important. And you want to know what helped with the clarity of the call on Paul's life? He didn't have to ask his wife for permission. That's true. I'm just telling you the truth, y'all. Right? He knew what he was supposed to do, and he could just press in with all his heart. I mean, this is a completely different and nowhere near as good of example as Paul. But take 2019, when the Fisher family gets the call to come here. Denomination calls, says, hey, Ken, we think you should consider this. Now, it was flipped for us because Janelle knew before I did. So she actually had to wait for me to catch up and feel like this was the right thing to do. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, it takes two to hear and to follow in obedience, where there's some blessings in the midst of being single, where you can simply hear God and press in, because the gift of singleness is not for self, it's for service. Now, I most importantly want to give you this, okay? At least most importantly for me, I shouldn't say most importantly, and most importantly for me, is that we need to understand that we are fully human as singles. Our relationship status does not affect our humanness. And whether it's being single because of heartbreak and the loss of a deeply loved partner for your whole of your life, or whether it's the choice of being single, our humanness, our image of God, is not impacted by our relational status. How do I know this? You guys already know the answer. Jesus. Fully God, fully man. Exhibit B, the Apostle Paul, whom we read of, 1 Corinthians 7. Fully human. Their relational status did not impact their humanness, their image of God. I say all this today, and I believe every word of it with all my heart, but I also recognize that being single, especially in a church context, can have a couple challenges. And that's a reality we got to talk about. Like God, I want to bless and celebrate our singles, so I thought it was important to ask one of our singles to help give us, the broader church family, including me, some insight on what it means to be single in the local church community. So I'm going to invite Tanya up, and she's going to help me, understand a little bit more of what it's like. Yeah, come on up. So welcome, Tanya. Yeah! All right, Tanya, welcome here. Thank you for coming. I know this takes courage. So let's start easy. You're Tanya. Give us just an interesting insight into who you are.
Yeah. I am a teacher. I think some of you know me. I work at Fort Christian as a junior high teacher. I teach humanities and arts to the junior highs there. And I'm an auntie. I'm trying to think what else to say about myself. That's a really big part of my life. I have 3 nibblings that are just wonderful. They're great. I'm a bookworm. I did a recount recently, over 1,400 books.
Whoa.
It's probably too many. Yeah. Read early on that if you had over 1,000, somewhere as a kid heard this, that you made you officially a library, so that was a goal early on. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sweet. Hey, you know this is coming. They don't. But because we've talked about this being appropriate. Oh, yeah. How old are you?
I am 44. I do not believe that is a thing that we should be ashamed of.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think it will help kind of paint the picture for our conversation. That, essentially we're the same age, right? Like, pretty close. So that's an important piece to understand as we shape, I think, the conversation we're having, okay? So my first question is what do couples or families that are a part of a church community need to know about what it's like when you come to worship as a single?
I feel like this is my thing, my knee gets sore, so I'm gonna sit cross-legged, don't mind me. Okay. So for me, and obviously everybody's experience is gonna be a little bit different as I stand up here speaking for all single people everywhere.
Totally.
But for me, I felt like, I love our church. I think one of the things actually that's great about our church is its size and the way that I can walk in and recognize so many faces, and it feels really welcoming. But a lot of my church experience, especially as I've gotten older, is just kind of dealing with the fact that I'm always showing up at places alone. And so it means that, like, no matter how wonderful and lovely people are, it's me kind of often having to give myself a little pep talk, because I often have to just walk in and, like, find somebody else's group or family to, like, attach myself to. And it can be difficult to, kind of depending on how, like, the week is going, but not feel like I'm inserting myself where I haven't been invited, or so just, again, and sometimes that's easier than others. It sort of depends, and different church situations have been different. But that can be really challenging, is just that just you kind of do everything alone. And so many things are easier if you have that person who's kind of there with you to go and start things with. So
So just even that invitation to join us.
Yeah, no, like, is legitimately so important. And I say, like, again, my community here is so good. Like, I often, like, as things that I appreciate so much is when somebody, like, actively actually says, like, oh, hey, like, come sit, or like, oh, I'm so glad you're sitting with us again. Like, literally, that verbalization makes such a difference in just kind of calming any of those voices that sometimes linger. Yeah.
Yep. And so that might be a bit of the answer to this next one, but how can a church community support or include our singles better?
Yeah, so I think churches are really interesting because I think one of their big goals is to, like, encourage deeper community within our faith community, but also the structures that are in place can actually be unintentionally isolating for people, because I think so often like, being married is kind of considered just the adult default, and so many things are just sort of planned around that. And so in a church that I had been previously involved with, I really felt this in my 20s when, as all my friends were getting married, the encouragement was for them to go and be parts of small groups with other married couples. And I think, obviously, I understand that there's value in being mentored by other people who have been married and can speak that wisdom into your life. But really, the impression that I was given when I asked about, like, being able to continue being a part of groups with them was that I could not. And so it was very much both isolating, as my friends were kind of taken away from me, and as I feel like as adults we know that adult lives are complicated and busy, and if you don't regularly have a chance to connect with people, it's harder and harder to find time to spend time with them. But also very much felt like I was consistently being told that I no longer had anything of value to to be a part of my friends' lives anymore. So, and again, I don't think that was necessarily like what their goal was, but I often think, yeah, well, I mean, and I was literally told no. Like, when I asked to be a part of this group, was told that I could not, because I could not mentor my friends, and I was like, sure, but anyway.
Jesus can mentor them, though.
Yeah, right? I mean, but yes, obviously a little different, but still.
Paul, in his words,
right?
Single, anyways, I know, that's tongue-in-cheek, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was actually one of the reasons why I stopped going to that church. It just felt harder and harder to find a place where I actually felt like I belonged, because while everything in the church seemed designed to move forward with couples and families, they sort of just didn't know what to do with us. And so if you aged out of college and career, there was just kind of no place for you. And I remember being told, like, well, I could go join women's groups. And one, most women's groups are often planned for, like, daytime things for these young mothers, and so it wasn't actually a thing I had access to. And two, I mean, I obviously love other women, but, like, I think it's actually really important to be able to be in community where there are men's voices in my life as well. And so to be isolated from that was also, I think, really frustrating. So
it's good insight. Is there something that has particularly blessed you as a single person within church community?
Like I said, I think when I just started coming here, maybe it's because it's a smaller church a little bit, or just part of how we approach things, but I haven't felt that same isolation. Like, our community, I think, is really great. I felt really welcomed. My small group is fantastic. Like, I've never felt like a third wheel, be more like an 11th wheel, I think, at this point. So like, that genuinely makes such a big difference, where I don't tend to get that feeling like what are you doing here? I don't think anyone's ever that obvious, but just like not being forgotten. I think that's, like, there's a fear that I have, is that it's easy to like not be on people's radar. So things like during the COVID pandemic, when like you phoned specifically to check in and see how I was doing, like that was really, really meaningful, because again, I think that's often my fear, is that there just isn't somebody specifically like thinking about you or worrying about you, because everybody has their own families and things that they are focused on. And this was actually at another church, I think people just noticing, again, we were saying before, like, I think what people actually need is intimacy and connection, and that sense of knowing and being known. And so in the past, when I switched careers from working full-time at Heartland to going back to teaching, there was a period where I had no income coming in. It was a really scary few months of just living off of my credit cards and genuinely not always knowing how I was going to make payments. And somebody in the church community who obviously saw that need ended up leaving anonymously a couple of gift cards, like a gas gift card and a grocery gift card. Sorry, I still get choked up.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, because I think that's one thing that, I guess, just being on your own, again, you have to often deal with the burdens of those things without somebody to like necessarily help shoulder those. So yeah, so that was really meaningful.
Beautiful. Okay, this is the last one. Are there things that people say to singles? I know that you can't speak for all singles, but like, your perspective, okay? Are there things that people say to singles that are a joke, or that they mean to be having fun, but can kind of actually be a little bit hurtful?
I think kind of there's on two sides of things. Sometimes you'll be chatting with somebody and they'll, like, I think they're trying to be encouraging, being like, oh, like, you're so wonderful, and then they'll ask you, why aren't you married? And I never know how to answer that. You guys don't ask that question. Or on the flip side of that, sometimes you'll get the, oh, you're so lucky, like, you don't have kids, you don't have to deal with it, like, that must be so nice. And obviously I recognize that there are freedoms and things in being single that I don't have, but I think it doesn't take into account the fact that like as much as I like my life now, it is not the life that I had envisioned for myself when I was younger. And there was a very, very large grieving process kind of in my like mid to late 30s, when I realized how unlikely that vision was to actually happen. And I went from being the person who, when I was a kid, like, I didn't just want a family, I wanted like big family, like 5-6 kids, right? And so so again, I think things have turned out in a way that I really appreciate what my life is now, but it doesn't mean it was always easy or that I felt lucky, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. It takes incredible courage and vulnerability to come up here and do this. I've been
talking so fast, I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, we're good. And so we're grateful that you had the courage to do this. So thank you, Tanya. Like, we appreciate it. So I just want to pray over all our singles, some maybe by choice, others because of heartbreak. So I just invite you to pray with me as we close, and the worship team will sing us out. Papa, thank you that you are a God of love, and that you have wired us for spiritual family, and so that we have the gift of Tanya and other singles a part of this fellowship. And so I just want to pray your blessing, your love, your peace, and your presence on them today. Thank you for their gift to us.